You're defective since you can't have kids, so we're getting a divorce. I'm taking the house and the car. Sean's right. You're no longer part of our family, so go wherever you want. Sean and my mother-in-law said this while laughing heartily. They probably think I'll continue to do whatever they say, just like always. I'm just utterly disgusted with myself for not seeing how selfish they were. If I had known they were like this, I would never have married him. I made a crucial mistake in my life, but from now on, I won't make any more. With that resolve, I looked directly at Sean and my mother-in-law and said, "Fine. Let's get divorced right away." My name is Michelle, a 37-year-old working housewife. I work at a regular company and have a side job too. I met my husband Sean 12 years ago. At the time, I was attending a house party organized by a friend. That's where I met Sean, who was serving the food. Sean was very charming then, and we hit it off right away, quickly starting to date. We shared hobbies, spent more and more time together, and naturally ended up getting married. However, my parents were against our marriage. Sean's family wasn't wealthy, and my father was worried about that. He said we might struggle financially, but I was stubborn and ignored my parents' wishes to marry Sean. Unfortunately, my father's concerns proved to be right. After we got married, Sean had to help with his family's farm due to family circumstances, which led him to quit his job. Sorry, Michelle. I'll find another job soon. Okay, I understand. I'll work hard until then. As promised, Sean found a new job, but it was tough to balance it with helping on the farm, so he quit soon after. Even after that, Sean couldn't settle down due to his family issues and went from job to job. Eventually, his parents' business failed, and Sean no longer had to help them. However, constantly changing jobs had a negative impact, and he could no longer get hired by good companies. Frequent job changes leave a bad impression. Sean said, shoulders slumped. It can't be helped, Sean. We'll manage somehow, I reassured him, though internally, I was filled with anxiety. Sean diligently searched for work, but the only jobs he could get were ones with poor conditions. Still, we worked hard together. I figured that if I worked even harder, it would compensate, and I did my best. As a result, my income increased significantly, and we were able to build a house. When we built our new home, I felt relieved that we finally had a place to call our own. But that relief was short-lived. My in-laws moved in with us, almost forcibly starting a cohabitation arrangement. Life after that was truly awful. My father-in-law was almost invisible and caused no trouble, but my mother-in-law, Hisako, was constantly making snide remarks whenever she opened her mouth. "Michelle, isn't this food too bland? You should know how I like it by now." "I'm sorry, Mom. I'll be more careful next time." At first, my in-laws were quiet. But gradually, they showed their true colors and began to order me around. Ever since Sean started hopping from job to job, our life had been unstable, so I kept working. However, my in-laws didn't understand that I was supporting the household. They thought my work was just a part-time job I did on the side. "Sean works so hard outside, and you're just doing a half-hearted job with the housework?" Every time my mother-in-law complained, my sighs grew heavier. Influenced by his mother, Sean also began to belittle me. "Aren't you slacking off lately? I don't mind you working outside, but you need to handle both work and housework properly." Sorry. The once kind Sean had completely vanished, treating me like a servant. Soon after my in-laws moved in, my father-in-law collapsed due to poor health and needed care. That care also fell to me. My mother-in-law left the caregiving to me while she enjoyed her free time. I used caregiving services and helpers as much as possible to manage. But one day, while I was out shopping for a short while, my father-in-law passed away. The doctor said it was a natural death, but my mother-in-law blamed me for it. "It's your fault for not taking care of him properly." The shock of those words made me believe her. I was consumed with guilt, thinking my father-in-law's death was my fault. After that, I followed whatever my mother-in-law or Sean said without question. But recently, I've started to think, is this really the life I want? I married Sean to be happy. But now, I'm far from happy. I wanted to change the situation but was too busy to do anything about it. One day, after work, I stopped by a small boutique and found a captivating dress. I had been interested in the store before, but I never had the money to buy anything, so I always just looked. This time, however, the dress was so attractive that I bought it on impulse. I had to keep the purchase of the dress a secret from Sean and my mother-in-law. They didn't like me buying anything for myself. The dress was expensive, and if they found out, it would be a big problem. So, I hid the dress at the bottom of my bag and, once home, stashed it deep in my closet. I look forward to the day I can wear that dress. Realizing how long it's been since I felt this excited about buying something made me see just how long I've been restricted. A little adventure made my heart race. I needed their permission to go out, which was challenging. Still, I felt uplifted and enjoyed the excitement for a few days. But one day, I came home exhausted from work and saw my mother-in-law trying to forcibly take my new dress. "Hey, what are you doing?" I yelled, surprising her. But then she quickly switched to her usual nasty smile. "What am I doing?" "I'm looking at this new dress." "Since when did you become so important that you could buy such a lovely thing?" "This dress suits me much better than it does you. So, I'll take it." She looked at me with a sneer, but her smug expression quickly turned sour. "What's with this dress? It doesn't fit my style at all." To be honest, my mother-in-law is quite curvy, so it was no surprise that the dress I chose didn't fit her. But she got furious because the dress didn't fit. She threw it to the floor in anger, and the dress got dirty and lost some embellishments. "Throw that garbage away," she screamed hysterically. I quietly picked up the dress, thinking I might be able to fix it and remove the stains. Holding the torn dress tightly, I fought back tears. After putting the dress back in the closet, I waited for Sean to come home. What happened this time was too much. I planned to talk to Sean about his mother. Again, I waited for him to come home late. He came home with a sigh, saying he was tired, and I called out to him, holding back my shaking hands. "Sean, listen. Your mom wore my dress without asking. So what? You're both women. Is it that big a deal?" "That's the problem." Before I could say more, Sean cut me off, looking annoyed. "You bought a dress? Did you use my money without asking?" I was taken aback and couldn't respond. Sean seized the moment to shout at me. "You spent my money on that dress and then complained because my mom wore it? Who do you think you are?" But Sean's income alone wasn't enough to support us. My income was what kept our household running, supporting both Sean and his mother. In the early days of our marriage, I explained to Sean how much living expenses were. With his mother living with us, he should have known his earnings weren't enough. Yet, over the years, Sean seemed to forget. "I bought it with my savings." "Your savings? You don't earn that much." I was furious that Sean didn't understand anything, and I raised my voice without thinking. "You're the one who doesn't earn much." Sean's eyes widened, and he glared at me. "Don't mess with me. Say that again." He shouted and threw his bag at me. Fortunately, the bag missed me and hit the wall, but his violent action shocked and terrified me, leaving me frozen. "I won't tolerate you talking to me like that," he yelled again before slamming the door and storming out. This is horrible. How could he do that? I had always been obedient to Sean and never defied him. But his response to my slight rebellion was this. What should I do now? Tears welled up, and I wiped them away with my sleeve. The tears kept coming, and I couldn't stop crying for a while. After this shocking incident, I fell ill. Though I managed to go to work, I looked so pale that my colleagues were concerned and suggested I leave early. "I feel so exhausted," I muttered as I dragged my heavy body home. Just as I was about to open the front door, it swung open before I touched it, startling me. A woman I didn't recognize was there. "What? Who are you?" I froze, thinking she was a burglar, but she looked me up and down, then smirked and left without saying a word. Why was a stranger in my house? As I stood there in shock, Sean appeared, looking surprised. Sean often worked night shifts, so it wasn't strange for him to be home, but I glared at him coldly. Sean, who was that? Well, that was... Sean stammered, and I immediately sensed something was wrong, my face contorting with anger. Are you cheating on me? I asked directly. Sean avoided my gaze, looking around nervously. Then my mother-in-law appeared behind him and spoke up instead. That was Sean's new fiancée. What? I made a strange noise out of shock. Did I hear her right? My eyes widened as my mother-in-law continued, looking annoyed. You can't have kids, so Sean brought home someone who can. A young, beautiful girl who wants you to divorce him right away. Sean, emboldened by his mother's support, stood tall. I met her at work. She said she loves me. Even when I told her I'm married, she said she'd wait for me to get divorced so we could get married. She's a really good girl. As I stood there, stunned, Sean continued smugly. I'm divorcing you, defective as you are for not being able to have kids. I'll take the house and the car. Sean's right. You're no longer part of our family, so go wherever you want. Sean and my mother-in-law laughed loudly as they said this. I had been used and treated like a slave by them for so long. I never imagined they would go so far as to find a new wife for Sean and push for a divorce without consulting me. They probably thought I would continue to do whatever they said, just like always. I was utterly disgusted with myself for not seeing how selfish they were. If I had known they were like this, I would never have married him. I made a crucial mistake in my life, but from now on, I won't make any more. With that resolve, I looked directly at Sean and my mother-in-law and said, Fine. Let's get divorced right away. They looked shocked by my response. Leaving them behind, I quickly headed to the city hall. I was glad I had taken the morning off work. You said you wanted a divorce, right? Here you go. I handed Sean the divorce papers. After filling out the necessary details at the city hall, I returned home and handed the papers to Sean, who was lounging in the living room, with a smile. What, you're really serious about this divorce? What are you talking about? Of course, I'm serious. You were the one who brought it up, Sean. As Sean looked confused, I swiftly began packing my things. Since I didn't have much, packing was quick. I made sure to retrieve the dress I had hidden deep in the closet. Come on, sign these quickly. We're submitting them to the city hall right away. I hurried Sean to sign the divorce papers, and after carefully checking them, I looked at Sean and his mother, who were still in shock, and said loudly with a smile, Goodbye, then. They could only watch in a daze as I left. After that, I stayed at a hotel near my office. It was the first time I had felt so free since getting married, and I relished the newfound sense of liberation. Enjoying my freedom, I went to work as usual the next day. But during work, Sean kept calling me repeatedly. I was too busy to deal with my newly divorced ex-husband. Even when I returned to the hotel that night, I kept ignoring Sean's calls. But eventually, I sighed and answered, fearing my phone would stop working from the constant ringing. Finally, you answered. Where's the car? I had plans to take my new fiancé for a drive today. You ruined everything by taking the car. Sean sounded like he was about to cry on the other end. She was really looking forward to that drive. How are you going to make up for this? He was upset that his new fiancée was disappointed. I was so taken aback by his selfishness that I looked up at the ceiling in disbelief. What are you talking about? That car is mine. What? What are you talking about? That car is mine. You stole it, you thief. That's a crime. Sean cursed at me, but I cut him off with a deep sigh. Listen, that car is registered in my name. I paid for it, remember? I've been paying the car tax every year and handling the inspections. You were just borrowing it. how could you forget that? I had never spoken back to Sean like this before. He seemed shocked by my sudden change. Still, he tried to argue, despite his dismay. You couldn't possibly afford that kind of money. Did you pay for it then? Do you remember paying for anything? Did you just use my money without asking? Hearing this, I was now more exasperated with myself for marrying such a hopeless man. He seemed to think that I handled all the tedious procedures while he paid for everything. I was almost ready to pull my hair out, wondering if this was really an adult. Check your account, then. Is there any record of you paying for car inspections or car taxes? Of course not, because I paid for everything. There's no way you could afford that kind of money. Don't you know about my assets? My total net worth is $38 million. What? While Sean stood there in shock, I calmly explained. My father owned several pieces of land he inherited from my grandfather, which he managed well. He also invested in real estate and the stock market. He had given me some of these assets. I seemed to have inherited my father's talent for asset management and had increased my wealth through the land and stocks he had given me. The side job I had mentioned was actually asset management. By the way, my father had transferred these assets to me before I married Sean. He had repeatedly warned me never to disclose my wealth to Sean. Even though I had rebelled against my father by marrying Sean, I had followed this advice. Maybe I had an instinct about it. If I had revealed my assets to Sean, they would have been taken by him and my mother-in-law. Thanks to my father's advice, I was able to divorce quickly. I am truly grateful to my father. After a while, I reconciled with my father, and my mother had always worried about me. They might be disappointed when they learn about the divorce, but I think they'll understand if I explain everything. $38 million? You're lying. There's no way you have that kind of money. I understand it's hard to believe. But you don't need to believe it. I added another fact to Sean's trembling voice. Also, the house you and your mother live in is mine, so you'll need to move out soon. I plan to sell it. What? This is my house. What are you talking about? Are you out of your mind? I wanted to retort that he was the one who was out of his mind, but I held back, thinking it was a waste of time. Arguing now was pointless. So, I decided to calmly refute him point by point. What are you talking about? I bought this house, and I'm paying the mortgage. You didn't attend any meetings with the home builder, nor did you participate in discussions with the real estate agent or the bank. I handled everything and paid from my account. Indeed, when we were building the house, Sean had left everything to me, claiming he was too busy with work. Thanks to that, I was able to create a house to my liking, but now it's filled with too many bad memories. Therefore, I decided to sell the house as part of the divorce. Even though Sean was flustered by my words, he still refused to accept reality. No, this house is definitely mine. Then check your bank account. If the mortgage was being paid from your account every month, your savings would have run out long ago. When we bought the house, I clearly explained to Sean that the house and land were in my name and that I was paying the mortgage. Sean said he understood, but it must have been just words. After living in the house for so long, he seemed to have deluded himself into thinking it was his. I wanted to believe that a grown man wouldn't make such a mistake, but then again, he thought the car was his, too. I was sure my reasoning was correct. But even if it is yours, I'm living here now. You can't just kick out your family and sell the house. Can you stop being so ridiculous? I submitted the divorce papers yesterday. We're strangers now. It's weirder for a stranger to be living in a house that's in my name. What? You really filed for divorce? Despite bringing an unknown woman into our home and wanting a divorce, Sean seemed surprised by my reaction. Have you forgotten what you did? It was just yesterday. I carefully dismantled Sean's absurd arguments one by one. Let me make it clear, I don't care about you at all. You're just a nuisance living in my house and making selfish calls. You think you're supporting the family on your own, but you don't earn enough. And then you had an affair? Who do you think you are? I was wrong to always follow your lead, but what you did to me is unforgivable. I will never forgive you. It seemed my blunt rejection finally made Sean understand his position. I could hear his pitiful sobs over the phone. Thinking he had finally understood, I was about to hang up when he said something shocking. She's pregnant. What? Who's pregnant? My new fiancée is pregnant. If you kick us out now, it's not just me and my mom, it's her and the baby too. Please, don't kick us out. I was stunned by this unexpected revelation and momentarily fell silent. But soon, I regained my composure and asked Sean. Do you realize what you're saying? You're asking your ex-wife to take care of your new partner and her baby. Don't you think that's a bit too selfish? Sean, stumbling over his words, tried to sound hopeful. Well, you can't just abandon a pregnant woman, can you? He seemed to think he could use his mistress's pregnancy to get out of this situation. But he was sorely mistaken. I don't care if your mistress is pregnant. If you get kicked out of the house, you'll just have to find another place to live. But that's too harsh. Do you remember what you did to me? How dare you talk like that? Look up the word selfish in a dictionary. And are you sure the baby is even yours? Sean fell silent for a moment. Then, understanding the implication of my words, he shouted in anger. Of course it's mine. How could you say such a cruel thing? We divorced because you couldn't get pregnant after all these years. Just because you can't have children doesn't mean you should say such things. I can get pregnant just fine. What? I dropped the final bombshell on Sean. After we got married, I had a thorough examination at the gynecologist. The results showed I was perfectly normal and could get pregnant whenever I wanted. The doctor suggested the problem might lie with you. So I'll ask again, are you sure the baby is yours? Though it's not good to judge by appearances, considering how flashy that woman was, it wouldn't be surprising if she had other partners. Sean fell silent again at my question. He must have realized the possibility himself, that there could be someone else. To cover up, he suddenly flew into a rage, denying reality. That's a lie. It's not my fault she couldn't get pregnant. She said she loved me. The baby is definitely mine. Then why don't you get yourself checked at a hospital? After the baby is born, you can do a DNA test. That will make things clear. No, I won't do that. I refuse. Sean's hysterical shouting only made me more fed up. Fine, do as you like. Either way, I'm not giving back the car, and you'll have to leave the house since it's mine. Wait, please, Michelle, help me. You're asking the wrong person for help. You have your lover who supposedly loves you and a selfish, horrible mother. Lastly, let me make this clear. I don't care what happens to you from now on. Whether you get kicked out of the house or run out of money, it doesn't matter to me. Don't call me again. And by the way, your voice is really annoying. It's like noise. As Sean was left speechless, I ended the call and immediately blocked his number. Sean didn't call again, but then my mother-in-law did. She said a lot, but the main point was this. As I had suspected, the baby wasn't Sean's. The lover had been living comfortably thanks to me, but she didn't know that. When Sean confronted her about the affair, she brazenly dumped him and disappeared. Please, come back. We were wrong. We're truly sorry, my mother-in-law pleaded in a pathetically weak voice. I couldn't help but laugh. Sorry? You, who did such terrible things? Don't be ridiculous. Do you even know what sorry means? Look it up in a dictionary. What? How dare you speak to me like that, you insolent woman? See, you're not sorry at all. Seeing her true colors, I sighed in exasperation. And make sure to move out of the house soon. I've found a buyer. Wait, please. Don't kick us out of the house. No can do. If you keep resisting, I'll hire a lawyer. So just move out quickly. With that, I ended the call and blocked her number as well. I thought about getting a new phone. With new models out, it seemed like a good time. Maybe I'd treat myself to a nice meal too. The thought made me smile. I managed to sell the house without any issues. Sean and my mother-in-law eventually gave up and moved out. From what I heard, they now live in a rundown apartment on the verge of collapse. Given Sean's salary, that's probably the best they could afford. They were reportedly struggling with food and asking relatives for help, but no one was willing to assist them. They were seen picking weeds or drawing water from public parks, but I have no idea if those stories are true. Since that last call from my mother-in-law, I haven't spoken to or seen either of them, so I don't know the exact details of their current life. But no matter what kind of life Sean and his mother are living now, I have no interest in it and couldn't care less. In any case, unless Sean finds a better job, the future that awaits them is one of ruin. As for me, I'm enjoying my single life to the fullest. I had informed my parents about the divorce over the phone, but after selling the house and settling down, I went back home to formally apologize and update them. My parents had expected the divorce to happen eventually, so they weren't surprised when I told them. They assured me that with my substantial assets, it was perfectly fine if I remained single. Recently, though, a man I met through work seems to be interested in me. He hasn't made any overt advances, but I'm not so oblivious as to miss his signs of affection. Given my experience with Sean, I had planned to avoid dating for a while, but this man seems to know I'm divorced and still shows interest. While I want to avoid rushing into another marriage, if this man truly cares for me, I will need to seriously consider the future. I still dream of remarrying, having children, and building a happy family. Sometimes I think I should have divorced Sean sooner, but I can't change the past. What I need to do now is make the right choices for my happiness. In the past, I mistakenly believed that devoting myself to my husband and his family was my happiness, but I've realized that was wrong. As I woke up in the morning, new daylight streamed through the window, illuminating the curtains. I got out of bed and took a deep breath. I felt a thrill of excitement at the new life ahead. While getting ready in front of the mirror, I spoke to myself. Now begins my true life. The past is the past. From now on, I'll find happiness through my own choices. I opened the front door and took a step outside. The path ahead is one I must forge myself. With a clear mind and a sense of purpose, I took my first step forward. A new life is waiting for me. I won't hesitate anymore. I will live for myself. With this vow in my heart, I started walking towards the future.